Hi, folks, and welcome. Thanks for joining me on the first audio cast of what we're going to call the Q News Patriot. This podcast series is a private endeavor. I'm your guide for this series. My name is SG Anon. This is not a broadcast type series where we seek syndication. This is not an official account given from, any quote unquote official sources. This is one Anon's pursuit of passion to help educate each of you out there about what's really going on in the world. Give you a little bit of background on me. I woke up in 2010. I was very, very much asleep, and I woke up right as I was going through college when I discovered that Pepsi Cola actually uses aborted babies. That's part of their flavoring profile. There's many different companies out there that do it. Sonomics is one of the best known ones. That particular event, that occurrence, 2010, awakened me to the capacity for great evil. And even though many of us were silenced for many years over this issue, the fact of the matter remains that we are now finally collectively, as an entire civilization and a human species, a human race, mankind, we are waking up to the existence of a very ancient and very evil power structure that has manipulated the levers of governments and courts, politics, banking, finance, healthcare, transportation, infrastructure, economy, and warfare, basically since the beginning of human record keeping. I got involved with the Q movement a little bit in 2017 and 2018 when I started hearing of the drops, and I was researching them. But at the time, I had kind of gone back in the off years before President Trump to being safely asleep. I was drawing a lot of attention to myself. I was causing a lot of schisms with friends and family. I was going through some personal issues too, right around 2015 and then on. And so I really checked out of that realm for a long time. But I never stopped doing my research. And when Q started posting in 2017 and 2018, immediately I recognized some of the things that were being posted. Long story short, I went through 2018 and 2019. I was working full time and I was doing research into the Q stuff, and it had kind of lit me on fire again, for the discoveries that I made in my younger years. And going into 2020, I got connected to a couple of individuals who can't really say anything about. Suffice to say, one of them acts as what I would call maybe my source for true events behind the scenes right now, present day. And then another one is more of a mentor, a guide, a teacher, someone who's been there and has seen some of the things that I've seen for much longer and has helped instruct me and guide me along the way. They also have asked to remain nameless, have asked to remain nameless. I was instructed to begin this broadcast by the individual who I would classify as my go-to for questions and things behind the scenes. There are fantastic truthers out there. I love each of them in their own way. I acknowledge many of them are controlled opposition. I acknowledge that we have deep infiltration within our ranks. But I also acknowledge that there are people within our ranks who are zealous for the truth. They are zealous for humanity's freedom and mankind's freedom. And they're not motivated by money, but they do not have a problem with money, which I think is an attitude we should all take. And we will cover that maybe in a later audio cast. But suffice to say, I follow a lot of truthers. I've followed the alternative media now for many years. I haven't watched the mainstream media since 2018. And many of them have conflicting messages. And I think you need to exercise your discernment in that, even listening to this audio cast. You need to discern whether or not you believe the truth, or whether or not you believe certain things are true or not. Suffice to say, there's a couple of truthers that I really look up to. We can get that at a later date also. But I did not start this podcast because of the truther community. I started this podcast because I had a very short exchange with the individual that I trust a lot for accurate news in this time and place. And I was asked if I would be willing to educate people and open an avenue for truth and disclosure. I was told that there's a lot of that will be going around, and that even in the absence of an emergency alert system activation, which I do not believe we will experience, I think we will see the EBS. That is just my personal opinion at this point. If I can corroborate that later, I will. But even in the absence of such an activity, we need a conduit for the passage of truth and disclosure. I mean, the truth about things, the truth about 9/11, the truth about the Queen, the truth about Hollywood, the truth about the cabal, deep state mafia power structure, the truth about organ harvesting and adrenochrome. Things like these and others are going to be very brutal for those of you out there, your family and friends who are still asleep. It's going to be extremely tough on them. So, in the spirit of helping to lessen that a little bit, you'll notice that I try and speak with an easy tone, and I will try and keep that throughout this audio cast series. But I have been asked to help educate and guide and bring people to the light. So that's what I'm doing. And I appreciate you tuning in. As you can see by the image on the screen, tonight's audio file will concern ourselves with a little bit of intel and a little bit of education. Tonight, we are going to examine a little bit about China and Russia. We're going to look a little bit into Saudi Arabia. And we're going to try and I'm going to try and take you all through kind of how the alliance command structure works. So let's go ahead and get to it, shall we? In China, we have President Xi Jinping. Xi Jinping is a special individual. Xi Jinping is the son of essentially royalty in the Chinese Communist Party. He was born in 1953. In 2013, we all know that he was elected president of the People's Republic of China, chair of the Military Commission, et cetera, et cetera. Interestingly enough, President Xi and President Trump, both born in June, within one day of one another. President Trump on June 14th, President Xi on June 15th. President Xi's father was a well-placed Communist Party leader. His name was Xi Zhongjun. He was he was a comrade of Mao Zedong from the Chinese Revolution in the 30s and the 40s. Xi Jinping, present day Xi, was considered to be a princeling by many. He had kind of an affluent growing up. He went to a very interesting school, which we'll get into later down the line. Has a lot to do with where we're at now. He was always seen as someone that would be destined to rise within the government due to the family lineage. If you look at Asia, there's a very strong and powerful, even more powerful really than the Western monarchies, of kind of lineages and dynasties ruling, whether it be in modern day Japan or China or even in Mongolia. A lot of those ruling dynasties in the last 250 years, 350 years, were usurped by this Kabbalist deep state mafia structure, the Marco Polo expeditions. There's a lot more to that than what history tells us. The dynasties in China were systematically weakened the same way that the United States has been systematically weakened over time. It's always been an infiltration game for the cabal, keeping themselves hidden, often in plain sight. That's kind of their game. It's what they do. They've done that in China for a very, very long time now. And I don't think it can be argued that the Chinese regime that has been installed as an extension of the deep state's arm in that area of the world is one of the most brutal regimes that we currently have. Interestingly enough, the present day Xi's father was purged from the Communist Party in 1962 when he was 9 years old. Purged means he was killed. I don't think we really need, we can, I mean, we will at a later point in time, but I think we can probably stop right there and say, obviously this person is going, I mean, you're 9 years old and you lose a parent, you know why you lost the parent, you're going to make sure to get revenge. I think, I know a lot of people that would be capable of such. The capacity, especially in the Asian societies, for cross-generational righting of wrongs, restoration of honor, things like that, they're very enormous. They're very large pillars of Asian society belief systems, and really the belief systems around the world in some respects. President Xi is essentially the most powerful installation that the White Hat 32 Nation Alliance has. He is in a position of extreme authority and power in China. He is heading right now, present day as we speak, a silent coup. Present day, he is dispatching warships with the Chinese Military Commission to over 50 countries. Those warships will have coordinative abilities where they will coordinate with local forces that are also part of the alliance. And they will essentially help track down all of China's infiltration and spy networks that they have, their espionage networks that they've created around the world. President Xi will be the death of the Chinese Communist Party. That death is not going to happen by the end of this year. That death will probably take around, current estimates, anywhere from 18 months to 36 months, but we will see a fundamental shift in power in China very soon, probably inside of the next 6 months. President Xi is an enigma in the one sense. When you are hiding in a wolf's lair and you are a nice, fat, delicious hen, sometimes you have to do things that the wolves would do to reassure the wolves that you are still a wolf. President Xi has been placed in what is arguably a very difficult position, but he was kind of destined for it. He and Donald Trump share similarities, kind of born to an affluent family, very well connected. Some personal tragedies along the way that helped catalyze points of view. The man is absolutely working with the alliance. You're going to see China invade Taiwan very soon. It will be a full mainland invasion. The entire invasion will be over in 30 hours. The idea with the Taiwan takeover is it's a fewfold. One, there's bioweapon laboratories located in Taiwan, similar to the ones that Putin is currently eradicating in Ukraine. Xi and the Chinese elders left over from the dynasties, the rightful rulers of China and their lineages, they have great cause for concern with some of those laboratories. So that will be one of the mission objectives. Another mission objective in the capturing of Taiwan will be the worldwide paralysis of shipping lanes. There are a great many shipping companies that either operate directly out of Taiwan or proxied through Taiwan. A number of them have their main operations headquartered in Taiwan. Many of them are complicit in child and human trafficking and organ trafficking. Many of them are complicit with the trafficking of babies and baby parts, bodies, adrenochrome, etc. President Xi will be a paralyzing blow to that particular infrastructure, as Putin is currently a paralyzing blow to the tunneling and network infrastructures in Eastern Europe. There are 35,000 miles of tunnels under the ground in Eastern Europe, all through those countries. Putin wants nothing to do with that. Putin, like Xi, lost a lot of people along the way. Unlike Xi, kind of in a polar opposite from Xi, Putin had a very poor, degenerate childhood. He grew up in Leningrad in a shared apartment unit. His mother was dirt poor. They were shelled during World War II. Very dejected young man. Saw a lot of horrors through his years. Rose through the ranks in the Russian military and intelligence community to become a KGB colonel. And again, when you are a hen among wolves, your job is to appear to be a wolf for as long as possible until you are in a position to take down all of the wolves at one time. And that's where we're at now. In 2015, Vladimir Putin was called a traitor to the New World Order by Jacob de Rothschild. In 2016, Putin is on record saying that I will, quote, crush the Illuminati with my bare hands. We all know that Putin and Xi are coordinating with President Trump and the lawful government of the United States to eradicate the deep state everywhere. But we often get our eyes focused solely on the USA because it is the most obvious, most egregious domino at the moment, but it is far from the most important. We are dealing with worldwide trafficking networks, many thousands of miles long, and under the water and under the ocean, in the sediment in the bedrock. We're dealing with underwater bases. We are dealing with shipping ports all around the world, dotting coastlines that are staffed to the gills with mercenaries, murderers, and pedophiles. We are dealing with islands of absolute horror. The Sound of Freedom will shed a very big light on that. Keep your eye out for that movie. When that movie goes out, you'll know that we are well into the awakening. The type of war that's being fought by the Alliance Command, it's not like any war that you can think of in the traditional sense, because it's all we've learned is traditional history in a lot of respects. Many of us, even though we've researched extra history and the true history behind some things, we still think of war as this either kinetic or digital activity. This war is neither kinetic nor digital. This war is, the best way to describe it is transdimensional. We have a warfare scenario playing out in business around the world. We have a warfare scenario playing out in finance around the world. We have a warfare scenario playing out in governments around the world. Much of the government side of things concerns itself with the very same thing that the United States is concerned with now, the 2020 election fraud. Other countries, such as Pakistan right now, are understanding and seeing very plainly that not only is there fraud, but it is flagrant, it is in their face, and all of their representatives, voices, people that they trusted, have turned on them, essentially. This deep state mafia controls a tremendous amount of the world. They controlled a tremendous amount of the world when Trump went in, and they still controlled a tremendous amount of the world when Trump left. Supposedly, Trump never left, but you know what I mean. The alliance is coordinating a super massive operation that it's almost difficult to wrap your mind around. The Saudi Arabian crown prince, after he met President Trump in 2017 on President Trump's world tour, this individual, man, he's an intimidating guy. All right. This guy was the enforcer for Trump and Putin and the alliance when the alliance was first being formed. This guy became the the public relations arm, essentially, of the alliance. He helped form the alliance across these transdimensional warfare lines. When he came to the United States in 2017 after Trump's world tour, he met with Donald Trump, and then he proceeded to go meet with Oprah Winfrey and Jack Dorsey. He met with Bill Clinton. He met with James Mattis, former defense secretary, who we know was a deep state plant. He met with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Steven Schwartzman, chairman and CEO of the Blackstone Group. He met with Speaker John Kerry, former Secretary of State. He met with Henry Kissinger, one of America's longest serving diplomats and a deep cabal individual, someone who is one of the 13 Phoenician bloodline families, someone who is above government. Henry Kissinger, George Soros, the like, they are above government. They are on a league all their own, so to speak, in the power structure that they have managed to create in this world, and we are presently taking that down. He was on the list for the Saudi Crown Prince. Antonio Gutierrez, Secretary General of the United Nations, was on the list. Michael Bloomberg, the founder and CEO of Bloomberg LP. Thomas Friedman, a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist for the New York Times. Friedman agreed to capitulate. He met with Bill Gates, Ernest Moniz, former Secretary of Energy under Obama, Lloyd Blankfein, Chief Executive Officer of Goldman Sachs, Masayoshi Son, the Japanese businessman who is the CEO of SoftBank. He met with Madeleine Albright, the Secretary of State under President Clinton and the first woman ever to be in a Secretary of State role. He met with Rupert Murdoch, chairman and owner of 21st Century Fox and Fox News Network. Jeffrey Goldberg, the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic. Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple. Elon Musk, CEO of Tesla and several other companies. Christine Lagarde, the managing director of the International Monetary Fund. Peter Thiel, the American businessman who specializes in venture capital and is the president of Clarium Capital and Mithril Capital. And the list goes on. Richard Branson, Bob Iger, Satya Nadella, Jeff Bezos. The alliance has been fighting a trans-dimensional war. If you paid attention to those names, you had people from business, finance, big tech, big media, corporate media conglomerates that started 100 years ago. William Randolph Hearst and Joseph Pulitzer started some of the worst. They were responsible for some of the greatest crimes on deferment that have ever happened to any country in the history of the world. We are taking that down now, but we lose sight of how massive this operation is because we are so focused on having Donald Trump back in office. And we have some intel on that too. Okay, Donald Trump will be arrested. That is going to happen. Now, it's not going to be a undignified arrest. It's not going to be a tar and feathering type of event. I think a lot of people out there expect such an event just because of the nature of the deep state. It is going to happen for the public optics. It needs to happen for the public optics. We are currently playing out a very long, very drawn out, very unpleasant, highly detailed, highly well executed, extremely precise plan to accomplish a number of things. One, to expose who these people are. When we expose the network, then we can expose those in the network. Two is to eradicate the child trafficking. That should be priority number one. I think it is priority number one, according to the people that I get my info from. The children have been getting rescued since 2017. The United States Marine Corps stormed CIA headquarters Langley in 2018 and took treasure troves of documents. The war has been going on for a while. Many of us are maybe a little bit late to the wake up. We're going to see dramatic shifts over the next 4 months. We're going to see a lot come out into the open in the next 2 months. September 11th of this year, likely to be a very dramatic event. I do not at this time believe that we will have midterm elections in November, but this is war. And we need to be aware that whatever the plan is day to day, it is dynamic and it is evolving, and it changes based on the necessity of circumstances that have changed in other areas, in other arenas. When Donald Trump publicly left office for the optics, that was the signal for the real global takedown operations to begin. None of what has occurred since 2021 January could have occurred with Trump in office. We would have certainly been plunged into a civil war by this point. I think Roe versus Wade would have been all that would have been needed. The reason that we had to have a quote unquote deep state plant in office is because we needed the optics, because we are going to have to right this boat eventually. Donald Trump is the president of the United States of America today, and he has been since January 20th, 2017. Donald Trump began his second term sometime between November the 7th and November the 14th, 2020. Donald Trump has never left, but he had to leave publicly to allow this operation to occur. He's going to have to come back publicly to salvage things after we've awoken people and accomplished all of the goals that we need to accomplish before we take the conflict overt. Joe Biden, by the way, is not, I said earlier, he was a deep state plan. Joe Biden's job is to Judas goat all of the deep state plants in the U.S. government and the bureaucratic agencies out into the open. Joe Biden's job is to help them think that they've won, basically. Joe Biden died March 31st, 2019. The actor currently playing Joe Biden was installed by the White Hat Military Q Clearance Alliance in 2020 in such a way that the optics carried forth of the presidency being stolen from the people of the United States, which was what had to happen. Joe Biden's job, along with many other plants, is to reveal the actors around them and help uproot them. I would say that he's done a very good job so far. One of the best ways that you can out anything is to play right along with what it wants to do. So in this instance, you have Joe Biden, supposedly president of the United States, issuing draconian orders to federal agencies ranging from health to labor to transportation to energy to Secretary of State, all the way down to, the DOJ and the FBI recently. He's issuing these draconian orders. A good way to find out who's on your team and who's not on your team is to issue those orders and see what happens. In other words, FBI, I want you to go raid the former president's home. The ones that go and do that, all about it. The ones that don't do that, those are the ones that we want to get out of the agency, transfer them later when we dissolve the agency and rename it. We had to root out the traitors at every level. Do you see that yet? Do you understand that yet? That's what the Alliance Command is all about. Rooting out the traitors at every level of society in the world. This operation is gargantuan in scope and breadth. All right, Space Force was a necessity just to coordinate the type of data transfer and the type of instantaneous communications necessary in the moment to carry out some of these complex operations. Okay, this is a worldwide effort. Donald Trump will be coming back in the United States, just as other politicians will be coming back in other countries. But the threat of assassination and the deep state making trouble is still very real. Folks, I know a lot of people have said that the war is won, and the war is won in a sense. But right now we are going through the mop-up phase, and the mop-up phase is a dreadfully tough one because that's when they pull out all their dirty tricks. When you've cornered an animal, it fights the hardest. When you've cornered an animal, it has nothing to lose. That's where they're at. They're a cornered animal. The heads of the snakes were cut off early on, the Phoenician families. Some of them made deals, stayed alive for a little bit longer than the others. Some were executed immediately. The command structure has been neutered, but the structure itself has remained intact, and we're allowing that structure to crumble so that we can expose it. And that's what we're going through right now. It's what we're living through right now. My message to everyone listening to me tonight: keep the faith, have good courage. I can assure you that, at least from the people that I talk to, we are in good hands. There is a plan. It is coming together as we need it to come together. It may get a teensy bit worse before it gets better. I do not expect us, like I said, to have midterm elections. Or if we do, it will be under completely different pretenses. But again, I encourage all of you to keep your minds open, keep your hearts full. This is a war. We are living through a war. We're doing a very good job. Each of you out there listening to me are doing a very good job. And you need to tell your friends and family who don't believe that it's completely fine that they don't believe, and that you'll be there when they come around, because that is our job as digital soldiers, is to help educate and guide, to pass along information when we have it. That's why this program was started. And to be the best of humanity. And you are the best of humanity. And so with that, this is SG Anon. We're going to sign off tonight. Thank you all very much, and we'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.